Long before there was a town of Jupiter, the land was home to indigenous people whose roots reach back more than 5,000 years. Evidence of these early Floridians and how they adapted to the coastal and swampy environments can still be found today in shell middens or mounds in places like Du Bois Park and Sawfish Bay Park. Archaeologists have described this area as the Jupiter Inlet Complex, which was a collection of villages where thousands of people lived in harmony with the land and waterways. Over thousands of years, diverse indigenous cultures flourished in Florida. These early Jupiter residents gathered rich marine resources for food, tools, and trade, and built sturdy dugout canoes. The world of these ancient tribes changed forever with the arrival of European explorers. Juan Ponce de Leon's first voyage in 1513 claimed Florida for Spain. A native village he encountered, Abayua, is the namesake for the Abacoa area of Jupiter. The Spanish knew Jupiter's native residents as the Hobe and hay-gah tribes. As the Spanish settled Florida and transported goods and valuables back to Spain, the hay-gah, who salvaged treasures from Spanish shipwrecks along the coast, became quite affluent. One such wreck that occurred in the winter of 1659 to 1660 is the San Miguel de Archangel, which lies off Jupiter's coast. Discovered in 1987 and known today as the Jupiter wreck, the San Miguel transported goods and valuables to Spain. However, the San Miguel also carried European diseases that devastated indigenous populations over time. In 1696, Jonathan Dickinson and his family were shipwrecked on Jupiter Island and captured by the Hobe people. Dickinson feared for his life, but he and the other survivors were eventually released. Dickinson's memoir of his experiences is one of the few first-hand accounts of the local indigenous way of life. As European settlement pushed deeper into Florida, indigenous tribes faced tremendous challenges. Populations of early tribes declined due to disease, conflict, and loss of land. Out of this struggle, a new group emerged, the Seminoles, a resilient people that included displaced tribes and escaped African slaves who sought refuge in Florida's wild terrain. Americans clashed with Seminoles even before Florida became a U.S. territory in 1821. The Seminole Wars, a series of brutal conflicts spanning nearly a half-century, drove the Seminoles to remote areas. In 1835, tensions stemming from the U.S. demand that the Seminoles move out west triggered the largest and costliest of these, the Second Seminole War. The Seminoles used guerrilla tactics and their knowledge of Florida's wetlands to hold out against superior numbers. A coordinated offensive by the U.S. military drove most of the Seminoles into South Florida and resulted in 2 battles near Jupiter in January 1838. A small amphibious force of U.S. forces was ambushed and driven off before a larger army marched overland. In the last standing battle of the Seminole Wars, the Seminoles fought a delaying action on the upper Loxahatchee River before retreating into the Everglades. Most of the engagement site is now part of Loxahatchee River Battlefield Park and Riverbend Park. Fort Jupiter was established in 1838 on Pennock Point. To sustain military operations, U.S. forces cut a trail from the fort south to Fort Lauderdale, a route now largely followed by military trail. The Seminole Wars finally ended in 1858, by which time most of the Seminoles had been captured and sent to a reservation in Oklahoma. A few hundred Seminoles held out in the Everglades, becoming one of the few tribes to resist total relocation. Today, the legacy of these early Floridians lives on in the stories, artifacts, and landscapes of Jupiter. From the hay-gah to the Seminole, the resilience and spirit are woven into the history of Jupiter.